future. And so we invite you to be part of our family. And we are so thankful for the faith that you have in the Word and in the words that you will share with us this evening. We know that the future is bright as long as creativity can be fostered in ways that this gentleman has proven is not only possible, but also responsible in the way that he conducts himself, in the way that he creates, and in the way that he has come to Chowan University this evening after a day with faculty, staff, and students. Our community joins us this evening, and we are so delighted that you have. Professor Hayes, if you will please come and provide this wonderful introduction to this genuine gentleman.
Hello all. It's my distinct honor to introduce Junious J. Ward to you this evening. I'm going to read a little bit from the bio in your programs and then have some remarks of my own. And I know I'm not supposed to be here for long because he's why you're here. Raised in Rich Square, North Carolina, Junious J. Ward stands as one of North Carolina's most resonant contemporary voices. He is a poet whose work blends musical precision, emotional depth, and a profound sense of cultural memory. His poems move with the cadence of lived experience, rooted in northeastern North Carolina, shaped in Charlotte, and carried forward by a commitment to truth-telling that is both intimate and communal. Ward's writing navigates identity, history, and the fragile beauty of the everyday, with a clarity that invites readers to listen more closely to the world around them. As a teaching artist and performer, he has expanded the reach of poetry across communities by mentoring emerging writers. His voice not only reflects the South, but reimagines it, offering language that heals, challenges, and endures. For at least the past 100 years, people have tried to say that poetry was dying, a relic of the past, too stuffy and disconnected from the present. But as the famous Victorian poet Alfred Lord Tennyson put it in his most famous poem, "A use in measured language lies." And as you're about to discover, it only takes a few minutes listening to J. Ward or reading his poetry to know that Tennyson was right and the critics were wrong. Why? Because deep, thoughtful, soul-piercing poetry, the kind that Jay creates, will always speak for itself and speak directly to us. In addition, Jay is a dynamic and fierce advocate of creative writing and the humanities for people of all ages. I actually met Jay for the first time about a year ago at the Roanoke Chowan Literary Festival, which we had in Edenton that year. It was here at Chowan a couple years ago. It was at Littleton a few weeks ago when he joined us again. He was a featured speaker there, and he also led a workshop with high school students who were preparing to read their own work. The workshop was a sight to behold. He instantly instilled confidence in a group of fairly shy teenagers on a Saturday morning, by the way, teaching them how to use a microphone and their own emotions to project and to captivate an audience. As poet laureate of Charlotte and a teaching artist, I know that Jay has consistently and constantly sought to mentor and to lift up other writers. Listen intently to his words tonight, and then go home. Read his words again, maybe write some of your own. Jay Ward is a dynamic and compelling artist, and I'm happy and honored to introduce him tonight as he delivers this year's Mary Frances Hobson Lecture.
I want to tell a story, but I want to get it right. I want to get the story right. And that story might be a poem, it might be fiction, it might be an essay, whatever it is, it's a story that I want to get right. It's a story that I want to talk about place. But when I talk about place, what I mean is, yes, buildings, yes, landscape, yes, architecture, yes, flowers and trees and all those things, yes. Maybe even an homage to a town or to a city, yes. To a hometown, yes. But more than that, when I say I want to talk about place, I want to talk about place in an impactful way. I want to talk about place in the story where it's a character in the story. I want to talk about place in a way that feels real and immersive. Because I've seen stories, I've heard stories where place feels hollow. Place feels like a veneer. Place feels stereotypical and therefore not real and not lived in, and that takes me out of the poem or out of the story. I want to tell a story, but I want to get it right. what I'm talking about tonight is kind of an obsession for poems that I read and poems that I write, and how place becomes part of it. Part of the reason that this has become an obsession for me is that puzzle of how do we know place feels real as opposed to just being some hollow artifice in the story. I'm going to share with you an excerpt from an essay from W. Ralph Eubanks, and the essay is called Looking for a Place Called Home. Writing about the South as a place has made me feel less lost. I am certain there are other writers who feel the same way about the places they are from, but the South is different because Southerners feel the need to explain where they are from, which when I first came across that made me chuckle a little bit, and then it made me think, why is this true? And if it's true, why is it true? And the first thing I think of is after moving from Rich Square to the Maryland, D.C. area and telling people where I'm from, there's immediately some kickback, some stereotype, something that I need to explain. I almost feel like I'm defending like where I'm from because of the misconceptions they have about it, because the way they think I should talk or what that means about my education and that kind of thing, right? So, and then when I say I'm from rural North Carolina, right, I feel immediately this need to explain. I'm going to talk through some points about why Southerners might feel the need to explain, and also this kind of ties into a grander discussion about place and how we talk about place as storytellers. Whether you are writing fiction or whether you are writing nonfiction, or even if you're just doing technical writing, at some point you're going to talk about place, you're going to tell a story about place, you're going to incorporate place. One, I'm going to play a clip from this movie. I apologize, there is one curse word in it, so I apologize. I'm going to play a clip from this movie called Mississippi Burning.
People got the wrong idea about the South. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody running around ragged, backwards, illiterate, eat sow belly and corn pone 3 times a day. Simple fact is, Anderson, we got 2 cultures down here. White culture and colored culture. Now that's the way it always has been. That's the way it always will be.
The rest of America don't see it that way, Mr. Mayor.
The rest of America don't mean jack shit. You're in Mississippi now.
That's for sure.
All right, let's talk about the nuance in this clip. When it first starts, we are seeing the defensiveness of the Southerner, right? The Southerner is saying, I know what you think. You think you're better than us. You think we're backwards. You think you know better than us about these things. You want to come tell us what to do. So the Southerners are already on the defense. And maybe if we didn't hear the rest of the story, maybe we start to side with the Southerner here, right? And then race gets involved, and then things get even muddier, right? And then what does this mean about the South as far as what I'm saying, and what does this mean about the grander conversation of explaining the South? This was from a movie that was portraying 1964. I'm going to go back to the early 1900s, though, and just talk about what is different between the North and the South and how folks are viewed. In the early 1900s, the common stereotype for being Southern was that you were lazy, that you were uneducated, that you were tobacco chewing, right? And as he said, maybe backwards or so forth. And black folks in the 1900s were depicted as minstrel show images, so being dehumanized, depicted as lazy, as superstitious, and almost childlike, really, right, in their naiveness. This is what many Northerners will start to think about Southerners, both white and black, right, because these are the superstitions that are going around. Also, the North and the South divide, we know, like the chemtrails, the remnants of the Civil War, and why there might be feelings between the North and the South. But the northern industrial states, you know, post-slavery, post-Reconstruction and Jim Crow, they are looking down on the South because the South's industry, right, is gone. So the northern industry is looking down on the South and saying that from an industrial standpoint, the South is inferior. And would even go as far as to say is they're parasitic. The South is living off the North. So these are the things that the Northerners are thinking about the Southerners, and the Southerners thinking about the Northerners. And then once you include race, then it gets even more muddled up, right? Because the Northerners are going to tell you that they look down on the Southerners because of Jim Crow and because of slavery and because of Reconstruction and because of how they treated black folk. However, the Southerner is going to say you're a hypocrite because you are not rolling out the red carpet of equality in the North, right? You are not treating black folks as equals in the North. So there's still this back and forth about the North and the South. So the Southerner might feel a need to explain themselves. I'm going to introduce one more thing. I'm going to introduce the Southern literature scene, Southern writer, the Southern poet, the Southern novelist. I'm going to do this by introducing you to H.L. Mencken. H.L. Mencken was a prominent critic, literary critic in the early 1900s. He had some very harsh things to say about the South and Southern writers, but for those that gave him grace, the reason they gave him grace is because he also proclaimed to be a Southern writer, an American writer from the South. I will read to you some of the things that he said. First of all, he had an essay called The Sahara of the Beaux-Arts. It's the name of the article. Now, I want to tell you what this means. There's a term in French, Beaux-Arts, which means fine arts, B-E-A-U-X-A-R-T-S. The title of the article was Sahara of the Beaux-Arts, B-O-Z-A-R-T. He is literally making a pun about how an uneducated Southerner would mispronounce this fine art term. But he is at the same time referring to it as a Sahara, a desert, right? He said there's almost no art, no literature, no philosophy. This is what he's saying about the South and about Southern writers. I'm going to read a direct quote from that essay. Down there, a poet is now almost as rare as an oboe player, a dry point etcher, or a metaphysician. It is indeed amazing to contemplate so vast a vacuity. For all its size and all its wealth and all the progress it babbles of, it is almost as sterile, artistically, intellectually, culturally, as the Sahara Desert. A self-respecting European going there to live would not only find intellectual stimulation utterly lacking, he would actually feel a certain insecurity. H.L. Mencken was not popular in the South. Here's one other thing he said. Virginia is the best of the South, and Georgia is perhaps the worst. Between lies a vast plain of mediocrity, stupidity, lethargy, almost of dead silence. You know what's between Georgia and Virginia, right? Right? We are right here in the Carolinas. This was his feeling about Southern art. This was his feeling about Southern writers of the South. Now, I want to tell you something very interesting about H.L. Mencken. He proclaimed to be an American Southern writer. People making excuses for him also referred to him as an American writer of the South. H.L. Mencken was born, raised, and spent most of his life in Baltimore, Maryland, which I grant you technically is below the Mason-Dixon line. But I lived in Maryland for 13 years. I have never heard a Marylander refer to themselves as Southern, and I have never heard a Southerner refer to a Marylander as Southern. So this excuse the excuse that they wanted to give was that he was from the South, so he was passionately engaged in wanting the South to be better. You know, I think he was just a hater. But this also shows the difference, right, between how a Southern writer has been viewed, has been treated over time. So as a Southerner, sometimes maybe we do feel the need to explain the South, but as a Southern writer, I think we absolutely feel an obligation to explain the South and to do it right. I also think that no matter where you're from, if you're writing about place, even if the poem is not about a certain place, but it involves place, place becomes a character. If you're writing a story, if you're writing a poem, place becomes supremely important because we have to get it right. We can't be shallow. We can't introduce stereotypes. We can't play on things that just are a veneer. We have to have something engaging and something of worth to say about place. That brings me to another quote. I'll read you this quote from the same article from W. Ralph Eubanks. To write about place, first you must understand the nuances of the place you are writing about and seek to live in that place as thoughtfully as you possibly can. Describe its geography. Tell about the people who live there. Capture the unique voices of the people who live there. Create your own archive of the place. What is very interesting to me here is that when we are talking about place, yes, we're talking about the geography. Yes, we're talking about the physical inventory of, or the physical map, right, of the place. But we are also talking about the people. We're also talking about their voice. We're also talking about their hardships. Place is not just writing about a tree or a landscape or a field. Place involves the voice, the cares, everything of the people and the voice that are part of that land. So when I speak of archives, and maybe like what Eubanks here is calling for is an archive that could exist mentally, right? It could exist where you are doing this mental archive, you're gonna write this poem about home. You grew up there, so you know everything about home. So you're making this mental archive. I am proposing that this also could be a physical archive. I'm proposing that depending on what we're writing and how involved we're getting into it, that this archive can live in many ways. I'm also proposing that memory is not enough to be an archive because we know memory is fallible. We might not remember things right. We don't necessarily remember them the way they happened. Also, if it's a nostalgic memory, we're only going to remember the good stuff, and we might remember it even better than it actually was, right? Archive allows us to examine fact against memory. As an example of this, maybe you are writing a story, and in the story you're talking about this one event, this festival, and it was the summertime, and you loved this festival. It had such a big impact on your life. In the process of archiving, you research and find out that festival never happens in the summer. It always happens in the fall, always. So then you do more research and you find out that October was unseasonably warm. That's why you remembered it as summertime. That's why it was so warm and sunny and hot. But now you also have an added detail of fact that makes the place more real, that makes the place more resonant and believable. Archival will also allow a place to not be hollow. And when I say hollow, I'll give this example. Maybe I'm writing a poem and one line in the poem is that as a kid, I ran past a tree. Nothing wrong with that. But a tree can be anywhere. A tree can be anything anywhere. As a child, I did not pay attention to what kind of trees were what. We have so many pines, I knew pine trees, but outside of that, I didn't know one tree from another. But research might say the top 3 most common trees in northeastern North Carolina are the pine, specifically the loblolly, the red maple, and the willow oak. Now, if I rewrite this line and I say that as a kid, I ran past this willow oak, a couple things happen. One, the specificity makes this feel more real. But 2, I've just given an indicator to the reader about where we are. I've given them an indicator of place because that tree is in a very specific area or region. So those details make it more real. Has anybody here seen the movie Sinners? A few. Okay, good. Yeah, great. And if you haven't seen Sinners, then maybe you've seen Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther. I'm about to show a clip from an interview from Hannah Beachler. Hannah Beachler is the production designer for all those movies, but also the production designer for Sinners. Her task was to recreate the place of 1932 Clarksdale, Mississippi. Recreate the place. This is Hannah talking about taking on that role and how she would recreate the place of Clarksdale, Mississippi, 1932.
So when we got to this one, my first thing was just when I went to Clarksdale, Mississippi, was really seeing what were the natural colors that were there. I always want to know the place. That's such an important piece of Ryan's films. And it is a character, I think, in almost all of his films. And all of his films, it's a character in all of his films. It's to him and myself, and I think that's the reason we face creatively forward together, that the place is as important an important character as the people. And then that's sort of the psychology of the two.
So again, as a production designer, as a storyteller, working along with the director who is telling the story, in order to recreate place, she needed to know about the people. She needed to know about what was important to them. I'm going to show a few production stills from the movie while I read another quote from Hannah Beachler. The initial inspiration came from Ryan Coogler telling me about the people in the story, who they are, what they want, what they wish for, their struggles and joy, pain, and loss. It was then up to me to put myself in the characters' shoes and design from their perspectives. Striking the right tone for the town of Clarksdale was the heart of Beachler's research. She chatted with Clarksdale locals to get an understanding of the culture and tasked herself with visiting key landmarks, including Dockery Farms, an 1895 plantation recognized as the official birthplace of the Delta Blues. It was our mission to capture the essence of Clarksdale as much as possible and to bring the spirit of the Delta into the film. So again, we are talking about archival of place as the people, the voice, the land, the architecture, everything. It's research, it's talking to eyewitness accounts and investigating. That kind of archival is going to produce a work or a story that feels tangible, that feels real, and that honors place. If you are asking what an inventory might look like, this is me being maybe like super analytical. But if we were going to make a physical inventory, these are the questions I would ask myself. If we're going to make a physical inventory for an archive of a place, then I do want to catalog the physical and sensory details. So in this inventory map, I'm thinking about street names, street signs. I'm thinking about names of roads, names of buildings that are in this place. When I was growing up in Rich Square, I didn't always learn the names of the streets because a lot of the streets didn't have the names on them. But what I knew was when I was going to my best friend's house, I would go Main Street 158, and then I would go as far as I saw the big rock on the right side. And once I saw the big rock on the right side, there's a cornfield up, and I'm gonna make a left before that cornfield, right? This is a physical inventory map. This is what makes the place real. This is what makes the place resonant. Sensory details are, what would I hear in this place? What would I smell in this place? What would I feel? What can I touch? What are the sensory details that happen in this place for me? And then what are the memories that spring off of those? What memories are coming to my mind about this place when I think about this road sign? Or the fact that there was one hazard light and now revisiting the town, we have 2 stoplights, right? Then I'm thinking about people and how to catalog, how to archive the people. I'm thinking, like, what are the names? What are the nicknames of the folks that live here? What do they value? And when I say what they value, I mean, what do those individuals value? But also, what do the people of this area, this town, what are their superstitions? What things move them? What are they thinking about? And then, like, when I say what do you like most or least, I'm really thinking about a way to incorporate the beauty and the ugly, because nostalgia says it's only beauty. We don't worry about the ugly, right? But fact says, no, I really love this about my town, but, back in the 1930s, this thing happened, and it kind of, it shaped what this town was, and I don't like that. That's my least favorite part, right, of this thing. But in order to archive, we're taking in everything. Voice, I'm again thinking about family and friends, but like what they say. What are their quotes? What are these things that you only hear in this area? Which, if you talk to enough people, I think you'll be surprised of some things that you thought were normal, but nobody else has ever heard anything like that before. Like, what are you talking about? What kind of saying is that? I'm trying to think. Anything I say here, you probably already heard before, but I know that we have like international students and students from all over. So I will say that a common saying with my friend group was, if we were driving and it was like cold outside and somebody had the window down, we'd be like, man, come in the house, right? Come in the house means roll the window up. And other people would hear that and say, what are you talking about, right? But I want all of that. And then if memories come up about that specific member of the family or friend, memories come up about that quote, then I want to catalog all of that. because I may not use it. I might be writing a poem or a story. I may not use it at all. But all of this kind of flavors my periphery of what I'm writing. Also, this archive exists and lives for other things to be written. And then this final thing is an interrogation. It is, there's a very common writing exercise that is you take a photo or a postcard or a picture or something, and you start asking questions about the photo. Because the first 4 or 5 that you ask are going to be low-level questions that you know the answer to. But as you force yourself to get up to 20, 21, 25, those questions become really, really specific, and maybe things that you can or cannot answer, maybe things that even like turn into other pieces of writing. So I'm also thinking about if we're writing about place, if we're writing about a town, we're writing about a field, we're writing about a building, we're writing about a church, like what questions can we ask about it? We picture that church, walk inside, what questions can we start to ask? All right, I'm gonna put this into practice because this feels kind of like abstract and esoteric. I'm gonna put this into practice. I'm gonna read this poem. I wish I had enough copies to pass them out. But also, I got a feeling that we'd be here all night if we started like discussing the poems. What I'm going to do is reverse engineer an archive from this poem. We're going to listen to the poem. I'm going to reverse engineer what might have gone into the archive to make this poem. Tyree Day is a poet who grew up in Youngsville, North Carolina. He writes about place very often. This poem is Whichever Way. I ran 95 north, 95 south, 40 west, 40 east, all the way to the plastic-filled Atlantic. I closed my eyes to every rest stop, truck stop, state flower, the broken heads of deer lining the road like a parade crowd. Every tree on I-85 leans over me like a holy woman, and if it could speak, would say again and again, the wind, like an aunt after her stroke. A mind on a freeway filled with unrecognizable bones. I died on 96 North. I was a ghost on 96 South. US 64 East all the way to my mother's house. In every direction, I was leaving. In every direction, it smelled like blood. A body under a vulture-filled sky. A jar of coins my uncle kept on his dresser. Coins he hoped would save his life someday. On the map I'm making, he's at every turn. Every street on the south side is still black. Charcoal doesn't give you cancer. So every night is a cookout marked by smoking stars. A chalk red cardinal will always mean I love you. The dead mark the living on bone maps as whole cities they can enter and walk around in with no reason to run. I'm gonna catalog here some things. So just looking at geography, 95 north, 95 south, 40 west, 40 east. So we are square in North Carolina, right? 40 east intersecting with 95. So we get this inventory map that lets us know the place. It lets us know where we're at. Also, like 96 north and 96 south, I believe, are like old highways that don't exist anymore. But where they did exist is actually near Youngsville where he grew up. So we are getting an inventory map that leads us into place. Sensory details, heads of deer lining the road. We're not unfamiliar with dead deer on the side of the road, right? Every tree on I-85 leans over me like a holy woman. And there are stretches of I-85 where on both sides of the road it's just trees, right? So we get these sensory details. What about the people? We are told about an aunt. We're told about an uncle who kept coins on the dresser. What do they value? Let's start with the uncle. Coins that he hoped would save his life someday. What does the uncle value? I can hear the uncle saying, why you save all those coins? And the uncle saying, I might need them someday. You never know. Yeah, you gotta be ready. You gotta have them, right? This is what is being valued. A chalk red cardinal will always mean I love you. How many of you are familiar with the cardinal being seen as a messenger? Yeah, right? So outside of the South, maybe they don't. Maybe they have their own folklores, right? But we are weaving in folklore and superstition into this, which lets us know about place. It lets us know about what's important to the people. If the cardinal is a messenger and some loved one is trying to send us a message, and Tyree says, a chalk red cardinal will always mean I love you. I'm going to read a poem now by Kevin Young called Whole Hog. which I think some people here might be able to identify with this poem also. This poem is not about place, but place is a character in this poem, and we'll talk about how. It is heavy, a hog. You need to stay up all night nursing the fire like a beer, or rise early like we did that first time you taught me how to drag December awake into flame, lighting pecan and history passed between cinder block and ash. Do you dig a pit? No. We build one last house for the huge sow, who we know rooted and ranged the given ground. Head on, scrubbed, split, the pig skin crackles, a communion of it. No spit, just shoveling coals like a locomotive engineer. Boiler man, rounder, Casey Jones mounted to his cabin, and he took his farewell trip to the promised land, the smoke everywhere like a prayer, clinging your clothes for days. We do not wish to wash away, to share the weight, to wear it, to honor the creature by devouring it whole. We know she would return the favor. He looked at his watch, and his watch was slow. Steam rises sweet among the maples and bamboo. How do you know it is done? The hog will tell you. So again, we're going to reverse engineer this to see what an archive might look like here. Sensory details, we're dragging December awake into flame. That's something that tells us the time of year. It tells us like maybe the temperature and what's happening. Lighting pecan and history passed between cinder block and ash. So cinder block and ash kind of gives you an idea of how the hog was cooked, and there are different methods, right? And the different methods might also speak to different regions and how they do things. The pecan, so do you know where the most common area in the country for pecan trees is? It's Kansas and the Mississippi, what did I write here? The Mississippi Valley. Kevin Young was raised in Kansas, right? This detail is giving us a clue into place and a clue into region. And then we talk about people. What do they value? I don't know if you got this. This is what I got when who we know rooted and ranged the given ground. That sounds religious to me. It sounds like a eulogy, right? They range the given ground, the God-given ground, right? We are being told something about the people and what they value. To honor the creature by devouring it whole. We don't want to waste any of this. No, we got to cook every bit of it. We don't want to waste it, right? We are learning something about the people and what they value. And now the voice. Where does the voice come in? This last line I think says a lot, because I can hear this conversation with a father or with a friend who's like trying to teach you how to do this, and you say, well, wait a minute. How do you know when the hog is done? Do you use a meat thermometer? Does it turn a certain color? Like, what happens? And somebody saying, oh, the hog will tell you. The hog will tell you when it's done. It'll tell you when it's ready, right? This is how archive works its way in to make a place feel real, to make it feel immersive, and to make it feel engaging. All right, one more reading example here. This is from Sula by Toni Morrison. This is the second paragraph in the book, right, in the opening chapter. She is describing the bottom, and the bottom is the area where these characters live. There will be nothing left of the bottom. The footbridge that crossed the river is already gone, but perhaps it is just as well, since it wasn't a town anyway. Just a neighborhood where on quiet days, people in valley houses could hear singing sometimes, banjos sometimes. And if a valley man happened to have a business up in those hills, collecting rent or insurance payments, he might see a dark woman in a flowered dress doing a bit of cakewalk, a bit of black bottom, a bit of messing around to the lively notes of a mouth organ. Her bare feet would raise the saffron dust that floated down on the coveralls and bunion split shoes of the man breathing music in and out of his harmonica. The black people watching her would laugh and rub their knees, and it would be easy for the valley man to hear the laughter and not notice the adult pain that rested somewhere under the eyelids, somewhere under their head rags and soft felt hats, somewhere in the palm of the hand, somewhere behind the frayed lapels, somewhere in the sinews curve. He'd have to stand in back of Greater St. Matthew's and let the tenor's voice dress him in silk, Or touch the hands of the spoon carvers who had not worked in 8 years, and let the fingers that danced on wood kiss his skin. Otherwise, the pain would escape him, even though the laughter was part of that pain. A shucking, knee-slapping, wet-eyed laughter that could even describe and explain how they came to be where they were. And by the way, like the fact that this laughter could explain where they were, meaning where they were from, meaning their place, right? This laughter could describe and explain place. Let's look at how an archive may have turned into that poem. Inventory map, physical description. There's a footbridge, we know, that crosses the river. Greater St. Matthews, we don't even need more context. We know what Greater St. Matthews is, and it feels like a real place that exists. Sensory details. You're going to hear singing. You're going to hear banjos. You're going to see a dark woman in a flower dress, and she's dancing. You're going to see head rags and soft felt hats. You're going to see and feel saffron-colored dust floating and falling back on people's clothes, right? And then when we look at the people, we're told about the valley man. We're told about the spoon carvers. What do they value? We're told here that the black people watching the woman dancing would laugh, they would rub their knees, and it would be easy to hear that laughter and not notice the pain. There's a value here for understanding that joy and tribulation sometimes reside at the same time, sometimes reside in the same place. There's this acceptance and understanding that I'm going to make the best of today. I'm still crying, but I'm laughing too. I'm going to make the best of today, right? So we're starting to see what the people value. Voice, a bit of cakewalk, a bit of black bottom, a bit of messing around. These are dances, by the way. So from those dances, we might learn a little bit about region. We might learn a little bit about what they're dancing, but also that we have these names for them that feel like quotes, that feel like very specific things to specific people. That is telling us about place and people's voice. Memory, these come off as interjections, right? Like, I'm gonna tell you about the spoon carvers. Oh, by the way, they haven't worked in 8 years, and then I go back to talking about the spoon carvers. The bottoms are almost gone. That footbridge, it's already gone. It doesn't exist anymore. That's my memory saying, but I know it was there. And I'm going to talk about it being there. This is part of my archive. So I'll do one more thing, which I talked about interrogation. So I wanted to do an example of interrogation. So I'm going back to this first slide. When I was thinking about what slide to use for the main slide, I thought, it's about place and it's about the South. So maybe I'll just pull up a picture of some Southern landscape. Maybe it will be a dirt road. Maybe it will be a field or agriculture. Maybe it will be, if I put in an AI prompt and I say, give me a beautiful Southern architecture or Southern landscape, then yeah, it might come up with one of those things. It might come up with a big white house with the picket fence. The thing about those AI pictures is that they generally do feel hollow, right? They feel like a veneer. They don't feel real, right? There's something about it, even though it's beautiful, there's something about it that still doesn't feel real and intact. So I was looking at just regular pictures of landscape, and then I said, but I want place to be a character. And in that picture, place isn't doing anything. Place is there, but it's not interacting. So I chose this picture because I think place is doing a lot of work in this picture. The main character or the main subject of this is my dad, but place is doing a lot of work here. We are, in fact, let's interrogate this photo, right? If we start interrogating this photo, so we see the cinder block here too. We see the whole hog there. We see my dad, but there's 2 cars in the yard. Where are the other people at? They're not in the picture, so what are they doing while my dad's doing this? One of the truck has the nickname Ugly written on it. Who named their truck Ugly? Whose truck was that? What's the story? What's the story behind that? If this was an AI picture, it might have the smoke coming up in columns and pillows. But what we do know is that that smoke tends to dissipate, right? And AI can't capture that, but it's going to make certain things hazy, right? That tarp, okay, AI is not going to put a big orange tarp in the background, right? Now that tarp has a use, it has a purpose, and AI don't know anything about it. This is character though, right? And this is place. And now we see the trees in the back. We see the brick building. There's leaves on the ground. So what time of year is it? My dad's got boots on, which might tell us about the time of the year, and it might tell us about the ground and what the ground is like. There's a newspaper laying on the ground. So why? Is it supposed to be there? Did it fly away? Is it part of the burning? Like, is it meant to hold something? There's so many questions that we can dig in and ask just about this one picture, because place is doing work in the picture. Place is helping us tell the story, which is why I wanted to talk about this particular topic as the craft lecture, because as storytellers, and I think we all take the role of being a storyteller at some point in some way in our lives. So as storytellers, our mindset towards establishing place is as important as the tools that we use to do it. So my thought here with all of this is that an actual archive, whether it is mental or whether it is physical, is super important, not only to explaining the South, but to explaining the place that you are from, to explain its ugliness, its beauty, its nuance, the complexities that make that place special. If we don't make place more than a trope, more than imagined, more than a stereotype, then we are doing a disservice to our poem or our fiction or our memoir or our essay. We're doing a disservice to our screenplay or to our movie. We are doing a disservice to the place, and we are doing a disservice to ourselves. I'm going to read one last quote. This one is from Vivi Francis, who I think is one of the best writers on the planet. Vivi says in the interview, "For me, in many ways, writing poetry is telling you my name and saying, this is my name. I don't give it up. I want you to get it right because I'm telling the story." We are telling the story. We are telling the story. It is our name. It is also our place. We are telling the story, and we have a profound obligation to ourselves, to past generations, to the place where we are from. We have a profound obligation to get it right, because we are telling the story. Thank you. I think the intent was to leave some time for questions. All right, so if there's any questions, feedback, discussion points, we have a few minutes for that. Oh boy. Well, let's see how much time we have. Yeah.
Is it not natural for most people to tell things and always embellish them so that they are better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. This is where memory comes into place and nostalgia comes into place. And being a storyteller, like for the family and at gatherings, the embellishment makes it better. It makes it enjoyable. It makes it more fun, right? And then when we are looking to archive the place, I think it's equally as important to make sure that we have like the facts behind it to make the place feel more rich. So in like an anecdotal storytelling, we understand and expect the embellishment. If we hear a story and somebody says, "Oh, this one time I caught a fish so big. Oh man, this fish was bigger than my head and bigger than your feet," right? We understand that this is embellishment. We understand that it's meant to make us laugh, and we also don't take it seriously, so that we're not going to judge the story based on the embellishment. Whereas if we're writing a poem or if we're writing a movie and we put things in our story that aren't true, then it could misrepresent the place that we're from in a way that causes stereotypes or misunderstandings and so forth. So I agree completely, like anecdotally, as a storyteller, and even with fiction, if it's understood that these are embellishments, which most of the time in those kind of stories, I think it's understood, then there's no harm, because we all know that this is an embellishment, this is a joke meant to entertain. But then as the storyteller, we understand the pivot, right? We understand the pivot to an audience that is taking our word for gospel. So if we say, I grew up in the South, and it was so racist. We had the such and such, right? Which most people from the South are not going to tell you that because it's nuanced down here. Yeah, does that kind of halfway answer? Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
The hogs, this picture, and then they're torn the hogs, reminded me of almost 20-something years ago when Randall Keenan was
Yeah.
where you were. He read about killing hogs, and it's in such detail, but it made something that might seem ugly beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really was, because he comes, what's it, Chincopeach he comes from? He really goes into that area.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Randall Keenan, amazing. Yes.
I've heard you speak and perform several times. I will be awfully disappointed to be here tonight, and I don't hear one of your original.
Well. Yeah. We'll have to. All right. That's what it is. So we will mutually agree on what the last question is, and then after the last question, I will read or perform. I'll figure out in my mind right now what I want to do, and I'll read or perform a poem to close out. Any other thought back? Yeah, thought back. Yeah.
I've been reading your poetry book, and I know in your original poems you do talk a lot about place, specifically Rich Square where you're from, and you leave a lot of your identity and place in these books. So how hard is that for you to share that part of yourself with strangers like me who just happen to pick up and read your poetry collection?
Yeah. Thanks for that question. I think that's the role of the poet. I think the role of the poet is to lead revolution in small ways, and part of that revolution is sharing and sharing honestly. Also, I feel like I have a very strong sense of self and of place, so I'm not shamed by those things, and so sharing. I think it's a constant work actually for me to be vulnerable. It's a constant effort and work to do it because, like typically as people and as writers, when we start writing towards a pain point, our writing kind of does this, and then it kind of goes like this, like around the pain point. And we have to train ourselves to be able to write through it, to be willing to share, and also to be willing to share something that doesn't always put us in a good light, because we're sharing the truth. I believe it was June Jordan. Yeah, I think it was June Jordan that says every poem is political because it involves telling the truth. So like that political action of understanding what my truth is and telling it to the best of my ability is something that I think is the responsibility of the poet. Thank you. Going once. Yeah.
As someone who's approaching 92, I look back at my life and I say to myself, I wouldn't trade it for anything, even though it was a hard life.
Yeah.
It was more during the Depression years. And I remember with my dad who lost his job, and he had to walk 4 miles every day to get to the streetcar, no matter what kind of weather it was, 4 miles back. I didn't appreciate that until later in life that I realized what my parents had to put up with for my brother and I, And I look at all these things today and I see things and everything is so much easier. They have no idea what it was like during the war years when everything was rationed. You have to live through certain experiences to understand why things are like they are.
Yeah. No, amen. I agree with that 100%. I sometimes wonder, like, if I'm trying to explain my hardships to my kids, it's like, well, before TikTok, I had to. I think this is why it's important that stories be told. I think this is why it's important that family history be told, and that as we remember our parents and our forebears and the things that they went through, that we're sharing that. And oftentimes, our younger generation, there are some in our younger generation who are ready for it, but some aren't. But just as you came to appreciate it later in life, like we trust that our young ones will also learn to appreciate it later in life, and not just the stories of their parents, but of their parents' parents and parents' parents, which makes our role as a storyteller to make sure that the stories are there for them to listen to read, make sure that we fight against books being banned and history being banned and history being retaught, so that they know what happened, what we endured. Like what previous generations endured.
The big thing I get tonight from your speech is making me think back of my life years ago and what I went through, what my family went through.
Yeah.
That, you forget all about those things. As things get so nice after a while, you forget about how bad sometimes they were.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I can remember when people would come to the door, the back door, always to the back door, and ask for food during the war years.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have any food. You know?
Yeah.
You don't get those type things at all.
Yeah, yeah. I want to thank you for sharing that story and that experience, because I guarantee, first of all, I'm benefiting from it, but I guarantee there's other people that are hearing that, and it's making them think, and it's making them think back, and we're benefiting from that. Thank you for offering that. Yeah.
Was there like a specific moment in your life that pushed you to become a poet?
Okay. So, I mean, the one that comes to mind most, I think, if anybody was here in the afternoon session, is when I was in 5th and 6th grade, my favorite teacher at the time, Miss Tutors, used to read to us from young adult novels, like Of Mice and Men, Where the Red Fern Grows, that kind of thing. She would also have us take turns reading to each other. And I fell in love with words. I fell in love with like the sonic nature of words, how they sound, but also that I could start just tune out and like picture this movie in my head. At the same time, she introduced us to the Harlem Renaissance period and to Langston Hughes. And prior to that, I thought poetry was limericks, riddles, Dr. Seuss, Shel Silverstein, like that's what poetry was to me. And it was the first time where I realized, poetry also doesn't have to rhyme. And poetry also can talk about world events. And poetry can also talk about family. It can also talk about difficult things. Poetry can also be inspiring. And it was my first time saying, oh, poetry can be whatever I want it to be. And looking at it that way as possibility, then poetry to me felt like this challenge. It felt like a puzzle to put together. It felt like it felt like something I could do, even though maybe I wasn't funny and maybe my rhymes were corny. But like outside of that, maybe I could actually make a difference. Maybe I could actually do something. And then, as I told everybody else in the afternoon session, then I think for the next 10 years, I wrote rap songs and rapped. I'll tell you this too, because I told them this earlier. I went to my first year at Elizabeth City State University. That my English, I hadn't declared a major, so my English professor gave us a creative writing assignment. And then on my assignment, it was 3 short stories and 2 poems. And on my paper, he wrote in red, see me after class. And when I talked to him after class, he said, this is what you should be doing. And that felt amazing. And then I did what anybody else would do in that situation. I stopped writing for 10 years altogether. I never wrote another poem, short story until like 10 years later, because I randomly got invited to a poetry gathering from a friend, and we were sitting around. We we shared a round of poems, and then we all wrote poems together. And I looked around at the room while everybody's writing, and I'm feeling this energy creatively, and I said, "Oh, this is the thing I've been missing for that amount of time." So from then on, I have not taken a break from writing. Cool. All right. Is that my cue? So maybe in the vein of that poem by Kevin Young, Whole Hog, and maybe in the vein of this picture, I'll read a poem that is also about cooking a whole hog. Like prophets of Baal, we had gotten a whole hog from Allander, pink-fleshed and splayed like a sacrifice to cover sin, which is belief that tomorrow is a place we can eat. I walk around the offering before the body is pulled. The men maneuver flame and smoke seems to follow me no matter where I go. Dad is gone to tend the fire. My uncle motions the bag toward me, peels it from the bottle's mouth like a fast-moving rain cloud. It burns sweet on my finger. That's good stuff, my uncle says. And I nod in belief, face contorting into an amen, but it burns, like the split open swine on cinder block. See how the smoke follows our gods, like eyes of a portrait, heirloom. The men walk in their own ritual of pretense, ignoring whole conflagrations. My uncle ignores whole burns in his chest, just like Dad. One day, I'd beg Uncle Skin to put the cigarettes down. He'd say there's no point in quitting now when he could feel what was chasing him already had hold. Temple of blackened breathing, charred flesh. His lung is smoking in the pit. It's right there, leapt from his torso. We hop out his truck, and the brown paper cloud disappears under his seat, crackling its own thunder. He shows me how to coerce embers back into flame while he lights a Newport. Done. The tradition handed down. Decades pass, and I still drink cognac. My throat an altar of wet ground, each sip proof, each taste a howl for resurrection. Bring it back, that moon, bring it back. His smile, an introduction, a soft mischief. I don't even think Dad would have minded the Hennessy, really. I never told him. Most beliefs we build on secrets. When I say cancer runs in my family, what I mean is my father and his 5 siblings could not run fast enough. What I mean is I ain't been back to my hometown since this uncle's funeral. What I mean is Dad is gone. My uncle followed like smoke. I'm being chased. A monster's hot breath searches for my lungs. I get down face to gnarled face with the animal whose skin pops. I can smell the pork ripen like impending rain on summer air. I summon the fire now. Swallow it like the men and gods before me. I stretch a rod through billowing smoke to touch, to test, to measure a prophecy against an unforgiving sky. Thank you.
On behalf of the students at Chowan University, I am honored to present the small token of our appreciation for sharing your gifts and experiences with us. This piece is commissioned by Meredith Long, a Chowan graduate and staff member. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all you did today. We are heading out to the chapel, so if you will all want to join us there, we'll be more than happy to. Please let us pray. We give you thanks for the knowledge shared today and the opportunity for intellectual growth. May the insights and collaboration formed here continue to grow, bringing positive changes to our communities and serving the greater good. May we carry this forward, and may we carry the new clarity into our own work and interactions. May the God of wisdom and peace strengthen you as you leave this place. May your work bear the fruit, and may we all be guided by the truth and light. Go in peace. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.